We live in a world of division, a world that separates by class, by race, by creed, and with division come the haves and the have-nots, those who have power and wealth, and those who do not. And as history has shown time and again, those who do not have enough will eventually take by force if necessary from those who have too much. Horror stories employ many metaphors and mechanisms to bring to light this conflict of the meek taking on the mighty. First, we'll take a look at how the smallest of our world take on this planet's greatest abusers, the human race. 1945 would see the first test of the atomic bomb in the United States, a move that would usher us into the atomic age. It didn't take long for storytellers to imagine the worst-case scenarios. The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms would introduce a new genre of sci-fi horror that would dominate the next decade and beyond.
The Beast! The Beast! The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms!
And just 1 year later, we would meet the world's most famous giant lizard. Then would come giant ants, giant spiders, giant leeches, even giant bunnies. The small and insignificant become monstrous and destructive because of humanity's careless dalliance with science and its upsetting of the natural order. Take too much from the world, and the world will have its vengeance. Enlarged by radioactive waste, the ants in Empire of the Ants, based on the story by H.G. Wells, are out for more than mindless destruction, as they begin to enslave the humans around them to serve their queen. The queen ant is contrasted with the Joan Collins character of Marilyn, queen of the small group of humans she is trying to swindle into buying worthless land by plying them with sweet treats and cheap booze.
Cheap scotch. I think it's all a come-on.
So what? It's free.
Much the way the queen ant rewards her workers with sugar. In a sense, both queens use those beneath them to further their own aggrandizement, and as such, both suffer the same fate. But is it even more terrifying if these seemingly insignificant creatures don't get physically larger, but they rise up in great numbers against us? The worms of SQUIRM, the bees of the swarm, and the frogs of, well, frogs, would seem to make a strong argument for that case. And nowhere is this idea more masterfully presented than in Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds. From the very opening of the film, Hitchcock eschews a traditional soundtrack and overlays the opening titles with a cacophony of birds. This cacophony continues into the opening scene, as Tippi Hedren's Melanie Daniels stops on the street to watch the noisy birds circling overhead, then heads into a pet store for her first encounter with Rod Taylor's Mitch Brenner.
I wonder if you could help me.
What?
I said, I wonder if you could help me.
Yes, what is it you're looking for, sir?
Lovebirds.
Lovebird, sir?
Yes.
Even in this scene, the dialogue is almost drowned out by the crying of the caged birds. To continue her flirtation with Mitch,
Back in your gilded cage, Melanie Daniels.
What did you say?
Melanie brings a pair of caged lovebirds to his family home in the small town of Bodega Bay. Melanie seems careless and self-important at first, her colorful green dress and gold accents all too similar to the lovebirds she buys from Mitch. A solitary gull attacks Melanie shortly after she delivers the birds. Then larger-scale attacks from groups of birds begin to plague the town. Two of those attacks are on children, one at a party and the second at the school. The biggest attack occurs in the center of town and famously features Melanie herself trapped in a phone booth, a metaphorical gilded cage, if you will, while the violence and destruction of the birds happens all around her. Though the original Daphne du Maurier story vaguely indicates that changing weather patterns are to blame for the bird attacks, here the motivation is left unresolved, except for this scene.
They said when you got here the whole thing started. Who are you? What are you? Where did you come from? I think you're the cause of all this. I think you're evil! Evil!
Is it a coincidence that the bird attacks begin when Melanie arrives with the caged lovebirds? Is it also a coincidence that the gathered army of birds allows the last survivors to leave town with the same caged birds still in their possession?
Can I bring the lovebirds, Mitch? They haven't harmed anyone.
Oh, all right, bring him.
The ambiguity of the ending, the ambiguity of the fate of the human race, is perhaps the most chilling part of this movie. Will nature forgive our trespasses and allow us to continue on this planet? Or have we crossed a point of no return? I suppose time will tell, but if I were you, I'd walk around the anthill instead of stepping on it. And maybe I'd bring a few extra breadcrumbs to the park for those nice birds. Just remember, be nice to nature, and nature will be nice to you.